Welcome to the Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show with Larry Lawson. As a former career law enforcement officer and law enforcement educator, Larry focuses on the use of tried and true law enforcement investigative techniques in conducting paranormal investigations. Despite his experience and training, Larry also keeps an open mind to discussions on topics that deal with evidence that are not quite as physical in nature. Paranormal Stakeout guests are professionals in the field of the paranormal and parapsychology, conducting the investigations and research needed to further the cause of paranormal study. Larry advocates an agenda of standardization of structure and training in the field of paranormal investigation and research for the purpose of one day being able to produce the evidence needed to convince a jury of the existence of the paranormal. Whether it is ghosts, UFOs, unsolved mysteries, hauntings or cryptids, no topic is beyond the investigative reach of Larry Lawson and the Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show team. Now, here is the host of the Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show, Larry Lawson.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Paranormal Stakeout. I'm your host, Larry Lawson, coming to you from the headquarters of the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation and Indian River Hauntings down in beautiful Vero Beach, Florida. So really happy to have all of you here tonight. I'd like to invite you to check out our website for Paranormal Stakeout at paranormalstakeout.org. You can also email me there at ghostguy@paranormalstakeout.org and write questions, send me thoughts and things you'd like me to bring up on the show. If you have a question about the paranormal, something you'd like to ask, give us a call, give us an email at that address, ghostguy@paranormalstakeout.org, and check out what we're up to. Now, I'd also like to make mention, if you want to find out what my team's doing, you can go to paranormalfbi.com or Indian River hauntings.com to check us out. We also have our Facebook by those same names. And you can also check out some of the things that we do on YouTube at Indian River Hauntings 2341. Gonna have a great show tonight. I enjoy having brothers and sisters in blue on the show with me, and tonight is no exception. I'm very excited to have Mr. Alan SLONAKER with us tonight. Alan's a native of Richmond, Virginia, and he grew up in a Victorian-era home on the city's downtown. It was here that he got introduced to the paranormal at a very, very young age, and it sparked a lifelong interest in history and the paranormal that ultimately led him to join the Center for Paranormal Research and Investigation in 2007. That organization was born in 2000, I might add. Al has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Virginia Commonwealth University. 35 years in the business, folks. 35 years, and I'm going to just brag on him a little bit. Just retired after 35 years service to his community this last July. So, Al, thanks for your service and welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Larry. It's good to be here.
How's it feel?
Still getting used to it. It's not even been 2 months yet.
Yeah, I ended it after 40 in 2020, so I'm now just getting used to it myself. So anyway, congratulations. Thank you for your service, and thank God you got out of it in one piece.
Yeah, 26 years of that was law enforcement. So
yeah, well, you did a lot of work, pararescue and fire rescue too, I guess, right?
EMS and search and rescue as well. Yeah.
God bless you. Well, you are part of a very interesting organization. Part of a very interesting organization that does things that kind of fit into the parameters of what I'm interested in and what I'm seeing for the future of the paranormal. So why don't you share with my audience just a little bit about you in case they've not met you before? Who is Alan SLONAKER?
Again, I spent pretty much my entire professional life in public safety. 26 years in law enforcement, worked patrol, investigations, narcotics task force. I retired, did my last 7 years as a trainer and in our Office of Professional Standards for the agency I retired from. And I came in to the paranormal field in 2007 when I joined CPRI, and I'm very, very proud of us as an organization, because we, I think, take a somewhat unique approach in that
Mhm.
we pursue it as academic research, and to um, we're looking at the science, um,
Mhm.
and not the metaphysical. Um, we want data.
Sounds like a plan. Now, but what got you into the field? What occurred? What happened in your life that such? I mean, there's so many of us in the public safety field now that have found an interest. And back when we started, we couldn't even talk about it. But if you remember those days, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
But what got you here? How did you get here?
The house I grew up in was in an old neighborhood in downtown Richmond. I was
Hmm.
fourth generation of my family on my dad's side to live in that neighborhood, and it was kind of your typical things that go bump in the night from time to
Hmm.
time. Footsteps, the occasional voice. My father saw full body apparition a couple times. Um,
Hmm.
I never did, but it was very sporadic. Um, but it happened, um, and so from as far back as I can remember, I've been interested in this stuff.
Hmm.
Absolutely fascinated. But also, my father was a huge history buff. And so I developed a love of history as well. And so one of the things that attracts me um, to this field is history. Uh,
Absolutely.
I the paranormal stuff is fascinating, um, but the history and the places we get to go, the things we get to see, are fascinating from a historical perspective, and I love that equally.
Well, wouldn't you agree that you can't have one without the other? If you're going to have an interest in the paranormal, you must love and embrace history because they two have to go together.
I think you're right. Yeah, yeah.
So, so what prompted you to join CPRI? What and how did you find them? What prompted you to go to them as compared to maybe another group or starting a group of your own?
Um, First of all, I can't imagine starting up my own group, because, particularly at that time, because I didn't know anything. Um,
Hmm.
and so I started looking for organizations, and I knew that I wasn't attracted to kind of the metaphysical side of it. I wanted to really try to dig as deep as possible. Um,
What do you
and
mean? Explain that a little bit clearer so that.
I liked the idea of trying to collect data.
Mhm.
I like the idea of working in a more professional environment. Um,
Okay.
um,
I,
less
I
on the
guess
less on the experiencer side, and more on the why is this happening
okay,
kind
getting
of
to
thing.
the answers to the question of
Right.
what's out there. Yeah, I mean, I call folks that there are a certain group section of folks in the field that are what I call paranormal thrill seekers. That's what they want is the experience. You're looking to find out what this really is on the other side, correct?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're trying to collect quantifiable data that could be presented in a traditional academic environment. That's the kind of thing we are looking for.
How successful have you been?
I think we've been pretty successful, and I think that like any organization, we have grown over time. We've learned, we've adapted, we've expanded, um, and I don't want to sound too braggadocious, but I think we are probably one of the only organizations in the country that is pursuing the paranormal field the way that we are.
Okay.
Um,
little more detail on that. So you do investigations, correct? Your
Right.
team does do investigations.
We
What do
refer to,
you?
well, we actually gotten away
Okay.
from using the term investigations,
Okay.
and that's one of the evolutions over time is we refer to them now as research projects.
Okay. Tell us how you research. How do you do that? A lot of folks that are watching this show are part of a team or have
Mhm.
teams, and they may take a whole different approach than what you're talking about. So tell me the difference between what you do and what um, just a two-person team, maybe a husband-wife team would be doing out there. What do you see as the difference?
I mean, a couple people could do a lot of the stuff that we do. There's nothing special about that. It's really, we are looking at
How,
it from science, and science says you're going to employ the scientific method, which is the
okay.
experimental model, and it starts with a
Mm-hmm,
question.
mm-hmm,
What's going on? Well, I think X is going on. Okay, well, we don't know. Design an experiment around it,
mm-hmm.
and gather your results, analyze your data. Does it seem to verify what you thought? Okay. If it doesn't, start over. If it does it replicate?
Mm-hmm.
Um, does it replicate over time? So I'll give you an example. I hear footsteps walking across the hallway in this house, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, well, my question might be, if there's footsteps, what else is changing in the environment? Is it just a sound? If is something walking? If something's walking, how do I measure that? Could employ something with an accelerometer, for example. Is there vibration in the floor from those footsteps, not just the
Mm-hmm.
sound of those footsteps? Um, so that's kind of what I'm talking about, and building up from there.
Okay. And you collect this evidence and you try to repeat it later. Now,
Right,
part of the scientific experiment is to prove the hypothesis, it's got to be repeatable.
right.
How often are you able to repeat what you get?
That is a good question, because I think that a lot of, well, I think we have years of repeating, and I'll give you another example. We have a site here in Virginia. It's known as Bacon's Castle. It's maintained by a private foundation called Preservation Virginia, which helps maintain a lot of uh, Virginia's historic places.
Mhm.
And it is dates to 1665. It's the oldest brick structure in British North America. It's about an hour from where I am, and we've been going there for 12 years.
Mhm.
And we've been setting up equipment, doing what we do, and we have found that the data that we have collected, um, not just the recordings, not just periodic video, and there is some sporadic video, but the environmental data has stayed consistent over time. So, what am I talking about? One of
Well,
the things,
before you do that,
yes,
we're
sir.
already coming up on that first break I was telling you about. So
That's right.
folks, we're just opening this book now. So stick with us as we delve into the scientific side of paranormal investigations with Alan Slonaker. Stay with us. We'll be right back after these messages. And welcome back, everyone, to Paranormal Stakeout with my guest tonight, Alan Slonaker. Alan, hated to interrupt you there. You were on a roll. You certainly do take the steps towards investigating, researching the paranormal in a much different way than I see a lot of teams. So I'm really interested to hear you to continue on with this place you have in Virginia and what you've done there.
So, one way that we've approached is environmental data.
Mhm.
Um, so, if you think about this from the standpoint of what we did professionally, you and I, we know that if you walk into a location, you're going to somehow leave a mark on that location, right? There's
Everybody
going to
leaves
be something.
evidence.
Yeah, you're all, something will, there will be some sort of trace that you were there. So what could we potentially measure to show that an anomaly had in fact actually taken place beyond, say, I got this recording? So over time, we started looking at environmental data. And what we were finding was that there are environmental changes when an anomaly occurs. So the approach was to put out environmental sensors. Now, one thing that
Mhm.
we do is we're not using any off the shelf. I take that back. We're using one item, off the shelf, quote unquote, ghost hunting equipment, right?
Mhm.
The one exception is the EDI,
That's what I
uh,
use. Absolutely.
right? And that's a nice, handy little tool.
Mhm.
Don't walk around with them. Don't wave them around. Put them
Mm.
down. Let them stay static. But those are great. But they only have a sampling rate of one once every second, which is not
Mm.
a lot. But
Yeah.
we started putting out environmental sensors and seeing what was or was not registering. And one thing we found was that we do get environmental changes. However, the environmental changes that we're finding are like micro events, if you will.
Mhm.
So you may register an environmental change, but it'll be isolated to about 2 or 3 feet of wherever that anomalous event took place. If it's outside of that, you're not going to get anything.
Mhm.
So one thing we found was spikes in EMF with changes in temperature and pressure.
Mhm.
As this kind of examining of environmental data evolved, um, we found that we were getting spikes in ionizing radiation, along with changes along 3 axes of the magnetic field. The interesting thing was um, that those spikes in ionizing radiation, for example, seemed to only occur when the anomaly was seemingly interactive.
Okay. Let's back up for just a second because I want folks to understand exactly where you're going because this is very important stuff. You're essentially discussing changes of the temperature, barometric pressure, things in the room where an event occurs. The event could be a voice, it could be something moving, it could be anything. Have I
Mhm.
got that right so far?
Yes.
Okay. And then you set these instruments out to go ahead and register. Now, the EDI, folks, just to let you know, is a terrific piece of equipment that measures everything and then it puts it on an SD card and then graphs it out for you. And that way you know exactly when something happens and you can triangulate another cop word uh, events to it. So,
Right. And the EDI, for example, is going to measure your EMF. It has an accelerometer, temperature, um,
mhm,
humidity, air pressure, um, and it. But more importantly, we know how it works. And at some point, I hope you get our research coordinator on, Brad Bradley, who is much more of a hard sciences guy than I am. I'm just an old cop. Uh,
mhm.
um, but the um, the manufacturer of that piece of equipment made all the schematics and the data on how it works available to us,
Mhm.
um, which is really important because if you're going to use a piece of equipment, you need to know what that equipment is supposed to do and how it is supposed to work so that you don't have any mistakes, you're not misreading the information that it's providing to you. um, but we know how that works. But again, it doesn't have a high sampling rate. So over time, we've employed stuff that can take 50 samples a second, 100 samples a second, and we've started kind of narrowing the scope on the data. Um, and that's just how it's worked over time. Now, when we go into a place, if somebody is saying, "Oh, well, I see that figure over in the corner on the first floor living room," okay,
Mhm.
and we may be trying to position equipment where people are saying they're experiencing stuff as opposed to just shotgunning it all over a structure.
Okay. Now, when you say people are experiencing things, is this information you're getting from the owner of the venue or your team, or both?
Usually information that we are getting from the people that run a venue or occupy a venue.
Mhm.
If our team over the course of doing what we do says, I'm getting a lot of noises in this part of the house, or I'm getting a lot of footstep activity in this part of the house, or I saw something here, then we're going to shift our focus.
Mhm. Okay. Um, let's back up a bit. So we've got an idea. You use equipment you've created yourselves to
No,
even enhance. No.
no,
Oh, this
no,
is not
no.
your
I
own
mean, for
equipment.
the
Okay.
most part, it's off the shelf, like Geiger counters. We're
Mhm.
using a Geiger counter that you'd find in a science lab. I mean,
Interesting.
it's
Okay.
just off the shelf equipment. The passcode data loggers, you can set it up to record any number of different data sets you want to collect, environmental data sets, and jack it into a laptop and leave it.
Okay.
But that's something that gets used in schoolrooms, high school and
Mhm.
college
Oh, yeah.
science rooms.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's stuff that has real world applications.
Interesting. Do you do any, do you train new people? I'm assuming you have a number of team members. Do you do refresher training?
Um,
Uh,
Anybody that goes out on site has to take a certain number of courses through our learning management system.
okay.
Um, so there's that. We also conduct background checks on new members.
Mhm.
Um, we're operating now as a 501c3 with a board of directors. I'm one of the members of the board. Um,
Mhm.
and we are a educational nonprofit. So part of our mission is to go out and talk about what we do and talk about the
Mhm.
science of what we do. Um, but yes, we do maintain regular training, and I think keep pretty good records. All of our cases get assigned a case number. They go into a type of RMS system. And I suspect we've been having some conversations, so I'm not prepared to say anything at present, but I suspect that is going to get even more sophisticated over the course of the next year or so.
So any evidence that you collect with your equipment or anything that you consider evidence goes into this RMS records
Mhm.
management system, right? And that's right here. What about physical evidence? Do you ever collect physical evidence? And if you do, what do you do with that?
I have not been party to collecting physical evidence.
Okay.
Um, Sometime before I joined the organization, um, there was a private residence case um, whereby somebody reported a ball of light that passed through a screen, like a screen porch door,
Mhm.
and it left a circular mark. And it turned out that metal had been the metal on the screen had been
Mhm.
irradiated as if it had been exposed to a nuclear blast.
Interesting.
Yeah, extremely interesting. And that incident predates my arrival to the organization, but um, that is in the custody of the federal government because it's irradiated.
Yeah, that's a little that's not a glass that fell off the shelf and got broken
No,
type of thing.
no,
Yeah,
no.
it's interesting. Um, do you have a system for collection and preservation of physical evidence?
Yes, there's a couple other active and former law enforcement in there, so that yes, if for example there was evidence that we needed to collect, we could collect it.
Okay.
But physical evidence, like fluids or footprints or things like that. No, No, I'd love to have something
we
like
all?
that.
Let's go back to the beginning of the investigation. What sort of things do you do up front before you investigate a venue? And from what I understand, you traditionally do historical buildings or businesses, that type of thing, more so than so how do you begin your investigation? What sort of background do you do on where you're going?
So first of all, we're really not doing private residence research projects anymore. If somebody comes to us, we'll talk to them. If it's something that we can do or something that is particularly interesting, or they genuinely seem to, need some sort of help, then we will try to do what we can. Primarily, we are focusing on long-term projects. And I'll give you the Bacon's Castle thing again, because that is a property that, one, is not occupied. It's not somebody's house. It's not owned by a single individual. We can get regular unfettered access to the property.
Nice.
And it can serve as a laboratory environment because we can keep coming back. And we have a few properties like that. Some I can talk about, some I can't talk about because they haven't authorized us to release it. But that is ideal for us because it's a lab.
Yeah, and that's important because hitting
You
a
want
spot
that replication of data.
Absolutely. But I want to talk a little bit more about that and some of your historical work that you do pre-investigation when you can. So, but we're going to take our next break now, folks. So stay with us. This is getting deep. So make sure you come back and join us in just a few minutes after these messages. And we are back on Paranormal Stakeout with my guest, Alan Slonaker. Alan, in our discussion, I'm kind of feeling like you traditionally have just a couple of spots that you go to do your continued research. How often do you go to new spots?
We just went to a new spot about 3 weeks ago. And this was our first crack at it. So it depends. It's really predicated on the types of requests we get from any of the organizations that we're doing work with, whose properties we're doing work with. So that depends. There are a couple properties. Again, Bacon's Castle is one. Scotchtown, which Patrick Henry's home for a while.
Okay.
They have a lot of reports, and that has been a good spot for us. We try to get to those places a couple times a year, at least.
Well, this kind of leads to my next question. You're going to a spot you haven't been before. You're a cop. You're going to want to know what the heck's there, who was there. What kind of background do you do on the property? And do you want witnesses of paranormal events to tell you what happened, or would you prefer they didn't tell you what happened? There's an interesting split in the field on what people want to know. What does CPRI do as far as a background or history on a venue you're going into?
So we'll usually do like a pre-site visit before we come in and do a full research project on it. So we'll go out to the property. We will talk to the people affiliated with that particular venue, whether it's staff, management, residents, if that happens to be relevant, and interview them about the things that they are or are not experiencing. Try to determine where on the property those things are occurring, because that's going to kind of dictate our setup when we get there. What is the nature of the activity they're reporting? Are they saying, we see ghosts flying all over the place? Or are they just saying, hey, I hear footsteps on this floor, voices on that floor, that kind of thing? That's going to dictate our layout. And then we do want to know as much about the history of the property as we can. When was it constructed? Who built it? I don't know that that's particularly relevant to what we do, but it's good. Well, it's great information to be armed with.
Mhm.
You know, we don't go in saying, well, it's because of this event or because of that event or because of
Granted,
this person is
granted.
the kind of person, but it's nice to know the history.
Mhm.
And I'm not alone in being a history buff, so it's enjoyable to learn that. One of our members is a archaeologist, and he's actually been able to find things on a couple of the sites
Mhm.
that they didn't know were there.
Hmm.
He uses a drone to do surveys, and he's found some buildings on one of our sites that they didn't know weren't in their records.
all, all comes together, doesn't it?
Yeah, so
Yes, sir.
and that all goes together, and we'll actually diagram the site in advance,
Mhm.
so we know what we're going into, and then before we get to the venue, we'll have our team picked out for the night, and we'll know where we're going to place equipment and what equipment we're going to place.
Process, you're structured and processed. And I think that, in my opinion, is what's going to help the field progress when we start conducting ourselves that way. So I commend you for that. But let's kind of switch gears now for a second. You obviously have a very structured system for conducting and getting ready for your investigations. But what is this phenomenon, Alan? What is your theory as to what all of this is?
I can tell you what I think, and
Somebody,
that's as far as it goes. I mean, that's my opinion. Yeah. I think it's, you know, the bulk of this is probably a naturally occurring phenomena
Mhm.
now related to physics that we don't yet fully understand scientifically. Um, Obviously, that is speculating. But
But by that, do you mean that it's something that, when you say naturally occurring with physics we don't understand, does that mean something is possibly crossing over? Does it mean we're creating it ourselves?
well,
What exactly does that mean?
there's the creating it ourselves thing is an open question.
Mhm.
I'll tell you something we've noticed along the idea of creating it ourselves. We have a couple venues that other groups go to, a lot of paranormal tourism,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. One that is particularly well known. We've been there 3 or 4 times. It's been a while, but St. Albans Sanatorium.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. I've heard of it.
that gets a lot of traffic. Gets a lot of traffic. Over time, the phenomena that gets reported in that place has changed
Okay.
substantially.
I've got something I want to ask you about that when you finish this thought.
It's in some cases become more dark or more sinister.
Mhm.
Um, and is that us? I don't know. Um, you know, we it's an open ended question. But you have a place. We have a place. I'm probably not going to mention the name, but we have a place locally that has a lot of paranormal tourism. A lot of
Mhm.
other groups go in there, and it went from having very kind of mundane type activity to having much more pronounced activity, um, different activity, little on the darker side. Um, is that because of the all the traffic it's getting? Are people bringing that with them, even if it's just here?
Mhm.
We don't know. Um, who knows? Um, some of the things like the spikes in ionizing radiation with the changes in magnetic field, um, there's that kind of touches on theories about wormholes. Is are we talking about a micro wormhole that allows a voice to come through from another time, somewhere else in the universe, whatever that may be? Um, who knows? I think everything is pointing to some sort of environmental correlation. I'll give you
Okay.
another example. The GOES weather satellite maintained by NOAA. We've been looking at GOES data. Brad Bradley found this almost by accident some years back. That tracks solar weather. It's the Earth's magnetic field. And
Yep.
you can look at that in a real-time display 24 hours a day. And it goes up and it goes down, just like any other waveform.
Solar flares, the whole bit. Yeah.
Magnetic field. And when that is going down, when it's on the downslope, that's when activity is occurring. When it bottoms out, the activity stops and it peters off as it's going up. Activity picks up again when the waveform is on a downslope again. And it became so consistent because we're keeping track of our time. We're using an atomic clock and we're matching that time to all of our different data points, including GOES. We don't know why, we don't know how, but it's always on the downward slope of the GOES satellite data. Why? But it's giving us an indication that there's some sort of environmental correlation to this phenomena.
See, that's the data. That's the kind of data we need to prove or disprove. Now comes the big question is, and you said it yourself, is why? And we don't know that yet. That's what our quest is all about, is why. But do you in your heart feel that it is it's natural, supernatural maybe, but it's natural. It's something that's occurring out there that we don't yet understand.
Well, we talk about it in terms of the paranormal becoming the perinormal. Going from something that is completely unknown, that supernatural, that folklore, to something that science is beginning to slowly unravel and say, well, there's a reason that you hear those footsteps. There's a reason you hear those voices. It's not the ghost of, Uncle Bob. It's something else.
Okay, but what?
I don't know.
Do you see that there is a possible connection here to the other side, in the sense that we are maybe crossing a barrier into another dimension? Is that possible? I mean,
if you go with the wormhole theory, then that's potential. That's possible. I mean, where does a wormhole lead? We don't really know.
So one of the biggest arguments that I hear in the field is you cannot quantify so much of what the paranormal, particularly with mediums, for example, and many mediums will say you can't prove what I'm seeing. And that's true, we can't. But with what you're describing, if we can find a way to prove that wormhole exists with this type of experiment, that piece of data is fascinating to me. When the magnetic field in the solar system is going down, you have activity. That's hard data. That's important stuff. Where do you think we can take that?
Well, you have the mainstream scientific community that is looking at some of those things that 20 years ago would have been pure science fiction. You have look at CERN. Look at what they're doing there. And so they're not doing it under the auspices of paranormal research. They're doing it under the auspices of quantum physics.
But it does give support to an argument that I have. We can't say never. We cannot say we'll never find out, because 20 years ago, most of what you're saying was thought to be science fiction. Now it's reality.
Yep.
And I think that's where we have to go, not only in our field, but also in the scientific field. It's possible. Let's start looking at the possible.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, always go in with an open mind.
Absolutely.
Always go in with an open mind. But like, and I when I talk to people that are interested in this field, I say, look, we all come to this, just like we came to police work. You have your biases, if you will. You have your beliefs. You have all your personal baggage. Okay, but to do the
Speaking of
job,
biases, I got a time bias right now. So I want to get back to this. Sorry, but we got to take our
Yep.
last break. Folks, stay with us. Like I said, this is heavy. Come on back and see the last half part of this show right after these messages. Welcome back to Paranormal Stakeout and my guest, Alan Slonaker. Heavy conversation. It's I do want to make mention, folks, if you want to find out more about our show, go to paranormalstakeout.org. Check out the terrific programming on xzbn.net, the X Zone broadcast radio and television channel. See all the other great shows in here. If you'd like to find out more about us, you can go to paranormalfbi.com or indianriverhauntings.com, or check us out on YouTube at Indian River Hauntings 2341. And Alan, is there a website you'd like to share with folks that if they want to check out what you're doing?
Yes, sir. They can find us at centerpri.org. Can also find us on Facebook at Center for Paranormal Research and Investigation, CPRI.
Terrific. Thanks. You were talking about coming in with biases as we went to our break, and I've been asked, and I don't really like bringing a lot of this up, but I've been asked in the past, you're a cop. How can you believe in this? And my answer's always been, look, do you want me to come in and just make a decision about your crime, based upon my baggage, what my background is?
Right.
Or do you want me to come in with a clean slate, look at all the evidence,
Right.
and make a decision on what happened? Well, since you put it that way, that makes sense. And I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of folks, there are folks in our paranormal side, research side, that every bump in the night is a ghost.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the other side that wouldn't believe it was right in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
Neither side has the open mind.
Right. You
and that's what we got to have.
Just like I was saying in the profession that we did, you have to compartmentalize. You have to take all of that personal baggage, the beliefs, the biases, the presuppositions, whatever those may be, put them in a box, put it in a closet, and go in, like you said, with that clean slate. You have to. And from there, you go where the information
takes you.
And that is what it is. And I think that's where, if I was to have any one criticism of the paranormal field, is I'm not sure enough of us do that.
Oh, I totally agree with you.
We get led around by, our beliefs. Well, people that go, well, it's this, it's, it's the ghost of, Uncle Bob. How do you know? How do you know it's the ghost of Uncle Bob? And for that matter, what's a ghost?
The big question.
What
is a ghost? We don't know.
Right. And I can sit here as an individual and tell you, yeah, I think some of what we are encountering are, spirits, ghosts, a disembodied consciousness of somebody who may have once been mortal. But I don't know that. As a researcher, I can't say that definitively. I have to box that up, forget about it, and simply go where the data takes us.
Oh, totally agree. Have you ever experienced something profound enough that you believe that there's something on the other side?
Yes.
Okay. Anything you'd like to share? And that's okay if you don't.
The most profound one, I'm not going to share.
Fair enough.
Just because that was not profound in a good way. But I have been doing this for a long time. And it has definitely, I'm not the same person now that I was when I started. And you get into this going, and honest to God, I got into this going, well, this will maybe answer some questions. I have more questions now than when I started.
I hear you.
But I will say this: there is much more, in my opinion, going on. Much more to what we call reality, then I think we fully understand.
Very eloquently and politically correctly put. I understand exactly where you're coming from. On the other side, do you think we go to different dimensions? Has your evidence given you any indication where we go after we die?
No, not ours. You have certain facets of academia that are studying that very hard.
Mm-hmm.
University of Virginia Center for Perceptual Studies. That is the bulk of their academic research. Is trying to answer that question. But again, that comes back to belief. I was raised in the Episcopal Church. I have a belief structure. I have a religious belief structure. But again, as a researcher, I have to put that in a box and not let that cloud my judgment as a researcher.
Well said. And we could spend all night actually philosophizing about the collective consciousness, what's on the other side. There's so much more, and I'd like to do that sometime, I might add. But I want to, in our last few minutes together, I want to spend some time on something that I think is vital to the field, more of a physical issue, and that is the ethics of what we do.
Oh, that's hugely important and becoming more so.
And that is a big problem. And to give you an example, to give you a start of a concern I have, a group goes in and says, yes, you have a spirit here, and we can help the spirit cross over. And they do sage or whatever they do as a team, whatever their protocol is. You're all good now. And then 3 or 4 weeks later, this person who may be suffering from some other issues that the team wasn't aware of, if you get where I'm going with, maybe mental health issues, maybe addiction, who knows? And they continue to feel the presence, or they think something's going on, but they said it was here. Oh my gosh, what's going on? And something bad happens to this person because somebody told them it's all better now.
Yeah, that is something that is starting to rear its head nationally. I want to say there's at least one case or something affiliated with that. We have encountered that kind of thing before, and I'll give you an example. We had an individual who was convinced that he was under demonic oppression. I talked to him extensively before we visited out there. I was trying to get some medical and psych history on him. He had significant head trauma, had a TBI, had admitted mental health issues over time. And we went out there only to find that an organization had been out there, set up their cameras, so forth, literally videotaped dust bunnies under IR and told him those were demons. And we, in the course of going out to his house and interviewing him, I said, "Do you mind if I see any medications you're on?" Well, we have an MD on our staff, and the MD wasn't present, but I immediately called and said, "What are these? I think I might know, but I need you to tell me." Those are powerful antipsychotics. And then doing the cop thing, I took the spouse outside separately, away from this individual, and said, what are you experiencing? What do you separate the witnesses or separate the perps, and you may get a completely different story. And she's, no, I'm not seeing or hearing anything, and I'm worried. Okay. So what would have happened had, we not been involved, had not said, hey, you need help, not Ghostbusters. What if he had harmed himself? What if he had harmed somebody else because some group came in all excited and told him, you really do have a demon in your house? I mean, the recklessness was astounding.
Could be lack of training. It could be a lack of understanding, a lack of education, or it could be
a lack of empathy.
lack of empathy or the desire to make something of themselves they aren't.
Yep.
And this
All
puts
of the
other people,
above.
and it can not only harm that person, but it also does not help the reputation of those of us that are trying to find the answers correctly.
100%. 100%. So yes, we do have a duty to be ethical at all times. And a lot of us in our organization in particular, we're mandatory reporters. We have teachers and doctors and mental health professionals and nurses and cops, and we're mandatory reporters. So if there's a significant psychiatric situation, if there's something that is causing somebody to be endangered, we have a duty. And
We
even
do.
if we didn't, we as professionals in this field should have a duty. We should not be doing harm in the pursuit of doing what we do.
Finding the answers. Absolutely. It's no different than what we did for all the years that we did it. We've got a duty to others. So what do we do, Alan? What do we do to not only protect the public from folks that are either untrained or have a higher opinion of themselves than they should, or believe they can do things they can't? How do we protect folks and the field?
I think at this point, it's probably going to be organizations having the wherewithal to discipline themselves to undertake, bylaws, rules, training, structure, formalized protocols, and operate to a high ethical standard. Because if we're not careful, you have one of those situations like we were talking about that goes off the rails and somebody is harmed, then at some point the state's going to step in and do it for us.
So do we, as a field, a group that wants to do this right and see the right thing done, do we create? I mean, in Virginia, you've got something that managed law enforcement. We've got the Florida Department of Law Enforcement here that oversees what we do. Is that what we need? And
We've
can we do that?
just amongst ourselves, we've talked about it in terms of like a paranormal code of ethics, if you will, that everybody's going to adhere to, but there is no overarching body that oversees
Should
this
there
type
be?
of work. Should there
But
be?
should there?
Maybe, but at present the field is very diverse, very scattered, and often
and there's no
disagrees with
standards or
each other.
structure.
Yeah.
There's no standard or structure to go the right direction.
Now, not that we have the end all be all,
Oh,
but
no.
but our philosophy is and will continue to be that we are happy to share our information, our protocols, our structure, anything about who we are or what we will do with other groups that want to do the same thing. Again, that's not saying we're the best. That's not saying that we have all the answers, but I think we have a good working structure.
And all of us working together, we can come up with a plan. And with that, my friend, our time has come to an end. But folks, take advantage. If you're interested in what Alan and the CPRI is doing, check out his website. And unfortunately, that ends our show for tonight. Alan, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us. And folks,
Larry, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And thank you, folks, for being with us tonight. As always, take care of yourselves. Love your family. Stay safe. And we'll see you on the other side.